Hi, everybody. Welcome back to What Are You Chasing? Today, my guest coach is Joanne Lee Smith. I am going to let her go ahead and tell you a little about herself. Hi, Joanne. How are you?
Good, thank you. Thanks, Crystal, for the invite today. I
Um,
love the question, tell me a bit about yourself, because I never know where to start. But where I will start is um, really, I'll just start from when I left school, maybe. I worked at age of 16 on a children's ward, and I never knew what my future career were going to be at the time. But I was always interested in helping people, and I've always been the kind of person that's that's always wanted to talk for a lot, never shut up really. Even as a kid, I never stopped talking. It was one of my things, and I never stopped moving. I was always really active, never stopped talking, never stopped moving. So this job led me to a career in nursing, and enjoyed that job for a lot of years, and worked in a hospital. I did paediatric nursing. Eventually, I found where I wanted to be, and I loved working with babies and children, well, up to the age of 18. And it was when I had my first child, my own first child, almost 18 years ago. He's going to be 18 in September. That
mhm.
I was inspired to go work in community, because I got so tired doing the night shifts, like shift work. I used to do sometimes 7 nights in a row, and I just got to the point where I was like, oh, this is my opportunity to do something different. So I basically I reapplied. I went back to university. I had a 1 year old at the time, and I was really excited really about going back, and I'd had a year off. Um, but during that year, a lot happened, and it's only really when I joined the dots up going forwards that I think, oh, I went through a lot that year. Um, my my nana, my grandma nana, I call her nana. She was diagnosed with cancer whilst I was pregnant, and we had a lot going on. And I went with her to all the appointments, and I was really hoping that she'd be around for when he was born. But only a week before he was born, she passed away. So it was it was a big shock. And but the nice thing, I'm just randomly adding in little bits here. But when my son was born, um, my nana always used to say to me, she used to always tell me a story about my dad being born with what she called a veil over his face, or they call it a caul or a cowl, or I can never remember how to pronounce it. But when my son was born, my son had the same thing, and it's quite rare. So I saw that as quite a nice sign. It gave me a bit of peace. But then, long story short, my granddad 10 weeks later died too, and I just becoming a new mum, even though I was a qualified nurse, I knew about paediatric nursing. I was just probably in a quite a heightened state of stress, and um, it was just one of those busy times. And had the year off, but when I went back to work, I went back to becoming a student health visitor. So I did another 1 year at university, full-time training. And what happened was, in the first week, I dropped my son at nursery, and I'm driving along, and then I have a crash, and I got shunted from behind and twisted. And so this was like my new career adventure. I was really excited for my next part of my career, becoming a health visitor. And then within literally a week of doing that, I'm in this crash that knocked me out. Took me to I went to hospital, but as soon as I was given the, oh, you're lucky, you're fine, nothing wrong, I was back up. I didn't even take a day off. I was like, right, I'm back. So
Wow.
I studied that year, and along with a young 1 year old, and he was forever unwell, and he was it was another challenging year. But I always believed I'm going to get well. Like, yeah, my neck was really stiff, and I kept going, and I kept studying, and I went to work every day. But the long story short was that I managed to get through all the qualifications, and I did become a health visitor, which is like a public health nurse, specialist
Mhm.
public health nurse, working with families that have from pregnancy to 5-year-old children. So it was lovely. It was like my dream role, and the fact that I could work Monday to Friday and 9 till 5, brilliant. Because I was just so tired of doing nights and
Yes.
weekends, and I wanted to have a. I've always been into health and fitness, and I've always been really active. So I was keen to get back to a bit more of a routine with my exercise and health and well-being. And so following that crash, um, I kept going, but I just struggled with chronic neck pain at the time. And long story short, I'm going to zoom forward.
Okay.
Um,
Hmm.
I'm going to zoom forward quite a while now. I'm going to zoom forward probably. I'll zoom forward a few years because my daughter was. I had another child a couple of just under 3 years later.
Mhm.
2 years, 7 months difference. Um, and let me remember my order of events. I'm forgetting where I am at what time. So basically, by this point, I'd been suffering with what was, well, definitely became chronic pain and chronic symptoms of neck pain. And it was beginning to be my lower left back as well, like the opposite side of my body.
Hmm.
And it was also leg. And bit by bit, I was getting more and more symptoms. And so I'd had some really difficult years of studying, some bereavements before that, new baby and everything else. And I'd had like migraines that never seemed to settle. Um, just bit by bit, I was getting more and more symptoms that weren't really giving me a break, but I was just carrying on the best I could at the time. So this is around about 2010 now when my daughter um was born. But then by the time it got to her being 3 years old, I was like really exhausted by this point, and I'd made this decision in 2013 that I'm gonna be more active, and I'd I'd decided to start running. There was a beginners running group, and I'd always been active anyway, and even through the challenges of the pain and everything, I'd always kept moving and kept going to the gym and doing all these things, but I'd not done any particular running for a long time, and I was like, right, I'm going to get back. And I joined a beginners running club, and it was like, this is 2013. I did have to have an operation before that because I had a hernia, umbilical hernia. That was something pregnancy related that I'd never really.
I did
Did you
too.
have?
Yeah.
Oh, twins. We're hernia twins.
Yes, they are.
Oh, yes, so you know what it's like then. So every time I'd been trying to get active, I was having issues. So long story short, I had that operated on. I was like, right, now is my time. Once that's healed up, I joined the running club. And what I found was that movement, the running and everything, finally I just felt like I was getting a break from this chronic pain.
Yeah.
I mean, at the time, I didn't really know what it was. I just believed it was moving, the movement, like everyone used to say to me, movement's the best medicine. And being a nurse, I always knew don't stop, always keep moving.
Hmm.
So I started running in 2013, and I did what was a 10-week course, and it was a 10K run at the end of the 10 weeks. And after that, I looked forward to running because it was the only respite. I used to say it's the only respite. It was the only time when I actually felt like I wasn't in pain. And I, for another, well, up until 2018, so 5 years into my running journey, I'd just before this done my first half a marathon. But every time I did those long runs, I'd be in bed all day. I'd be wiped out either with a migraine or just exhaustion with the chronic pain. And I was just like, wasn't really in a good place mindset wise. And I was managing to work 3 days a week and still do everything else that mums do.
Hmm.
And my job at the time, still working as a health visitor, we were offered the opportunity to do our training as a coach, and it came out and they wanted volunteers. So it was on top of your usual job, and it was a voluntary role, and they wanted different people from different professions to come and do this intensive 5-day training. And I was like, Oh, I'd love to do that. And a lot of people had always said to me, Jo, um, you you'd be brilliant. You should do coaching, because I always did the coaching, the mentoring. I didn't call myself a coach. I didn't really think I was coaching. And the day that this advert came out, my colleague went, Jo, this is for you. This is the perfect one for you. You've got to go for this. And it was a master coaching course, and I was like, master coaching? Oh, that sounds fancy.
Right?
But I quite like the idea. And I was told by my managers, we're not allowed to, you can't be released. No,
Mhm.
we need you, you're not allowed to be released. And I was like, oh, I was so excited to do this. And I read through the description. I was like, no, I really need to do this. I was never going to take no for an answer. I said, I'll do it on my day, or I'll take annual leave. I'll do it on my days off. I'll do it. I won't expect to do it within my job. Luckily, I was part-time, so I had some flexibility. So they couldn't decline me because development opportunities. And eventually they agreed to it, that I could do the training. And on day 2 of the training, this is back in 2018, I I had just the most biggest of insights during a an exercise that we were doing, which they called helpful and hindering thinking. So it was all about thinking, and we literally asked ourselves 4 questions, and we just drew a little table, and we had helpful on one side and hindering on the other, and we just tick a box to say whether our thoughts were helpful or hindering. And during the exercise, the first question was, what am I saying to myself? So the statements that I was saying to myself, and I just put a tick in. And my problem was that I was just always in pain, never not in pain, struggling to do things. And I was like, right, definitely hindering. What was my thinking? And then the next one was, what questions am I asking to myself? And I was like, I'd be asking questions like, is this forever? Is this how my life's going to be forever? So I was like, that question is definitely hindering. And then we moved on to memories from the past. What am I remembering? And all I could remember was how hard things had been. And I was like, well, that's definitely hindering. And then the final one was, imagine your future. How are you imagining the future? And I was like, hindering everything, every thought I was having, and it just full on came to me at that moment. And I was like, wow, this is all my thinking. And I had a massive moment right there, and everyone else was just getting on, like doing the little exercise, because we were doing it on our own, just in private.
Right.
And I was just like, wow. And that day, because I was just like, wow, because at the time they taught us a technique
Mhm.
to replace those thoughts with helpful ones. Like, what can I say that's going to be more helpful? What can I remember? What can I imagine? And at the time, I just drove home with a massive smile on my face, thinking, this is it. There's something I can do now that can really help me. And it really put a smile on my face, because I was like, it's just my thinking. And I don't have to think like that anymore. And I can, and it came to me driving home that same day, bearing in mind that I could barely do half a marathon without being very unwell afterwards. I was just like, I can do a marathon. I can do a marathon. And I was like, I don't know where it all came from. It was a massive, big moment.
Mhm.
Really, I just felt a massive shift in mindset. And just, I was like, wow. I realized in that moment my thoughts. And I was kind of like sabotaging myself
Mhm.
with the thinking. Long
Yeah.
story short, 4 months later on, I ran my first marathon, and it was a tough trail marathon, but I did it and I loved it. And that was the beginning of my trail running adventures. And I was just like, I was hooked on coaching. And I knew, like, I was like, wow, that one moment. And that I'd not even done the rest of the training at that point. I
Mhm.
just went away so feeling so different. And I was in a job at the time that I was a bit fed up with, and I wasn't enjoying the job anymore, and I was looking for something else. And I went back to that same job with a whole new pair of eyes, and I
Mhm.
enjoyed that job right up until another 3 years, 4 years. And yeah, so that brings me to today,
Mhm.
where I still do work in the NHS part time as a clinical lead, And I'm an NHS coach as well, and I lead volunteers into careers in the NHS, which I really love. I'm really privileged to lead on that program. And alongside that, because of my journey into running and running marathons, and soon after that, I became an ultra marathon runner in lockdown. I did my first ultra marathon in 2022. Oh no, before that, 2021. And I just doubled it up. I went from doing a 40 mile, well, I did a 50-mile ultra marathon, which was mountains, and then I did a 100-mile ultra marathon, which was mountains. All with the pain, with the chronic pain. It didn't disappear. That was the challenge, really, was that I was able to achieve and do a lot more, right up to running over 100-mile ultra marathons and getting medals and trophies and getting third place for the females, third female finisher. I was shocked because I'd never done things like this before. But there was always that part of me inside of me that was like, why is it not going? Why can I not stop? So like the only respite I was getting was from being active, being moving.
Yeah.
And so having that insight into I can do things, but the pain still and the symptoms still were with me that whole time. But that's what brought me onto my more recent adventures, of becoming a 3 principles coach, and how amazingly that led me to meeting with you as well, Crystal, and
Yeah.
all the amazing things that have come from on the back of doing that type of coaching. Because during that coaching training was when I was introduced to Dr. Sarno
Mm-hmm.
and his book Mind Body Prescription,
Mm-hmm.
and then merging together the two understandings of the mind body syndrome and the 3 principles understanding of mind, consciousness and thought and human experience and what's happening, what's creating our experiences. I think that it filled the gap. And in the last 6 months, I've been the best that I've been since 2008 when that car crash happened. I'm at a point where the majority of those symptoms have completely recovered, including the migraines, the eye pain, the ear pain, the jaw pain, the leg pain, the neck pain. I have a little bit left with the sitting pain, but again, I can still have times now where I'm sitting without, which is miraculous. Just with understanding that how it's connected. So that seemed to be the little bit that I've not got from within me, and it was just the bit about knowing it was possible, I guess, to fully recover.
Yeah.
And as soon as I knew that it was possible and other people had recovered from the diagnosis that I was given of fibromyalgia, I forgot to add that bit in. So even though I'd been going for a lot of years with pain, it was only 18 months ago that I was given that diagnosis, because I finally figured that I've got fit as I can, I've got as strong as I possibly can, I'm flexible as I can, I could do all of these physical things, and I could do the splits in every direction. I got really flexible, I got really strong. I worked on my body so much thinking that it was the body that needed fixing, but nothing was ever broken. There was
Yeah.
never anything broken, and that was the biggest part that I needed to realize. I needed to stop trying to fix my body, stop working on myself, stop fighting it, because
Yeah.
there was no part of what I was doing that was showing any message of safety and that I'm not broken, that I'm okay. And as soon as I backed off and stopped doing hot and cold packs, and I stopped doing massage, and I stopped doing spiky mats and TENS machines, and I had the millions of pain relief devices that I had, special chair and footstools, and I was doing everything. As soon as I backed away and stopped doing all of that, stopped going to the doctors, stopped having decided I'm not going again, not doing any radio frequency. I had nerve ablations in my spine. I had sacroiliac injections and ablations, and They gave me a tiny bit of relief, for so many months. The ablations gave me a bit longer, um, but I made a really big decision that I'm not broken, nothing to fix. It's all coming from the thought, the brain perceiving the danger, whatever you might describe it as. Um, but having those understandings just has brought me to the best recovery I could have ever dreamed of, which I never believed was possible. So yeah, it's brilliant to be able to sit here and share this kind of thing. But it brought me to coaching other runners with injuries and health issues and chronic pain and chronic symptoms to help them to get back to doing what they're missing and to get level up if they wanted to move up to doing half marathons, marathons, ultra marathons, 100+ miles. I've got someone doing a 268-mile ultra marathon next week. Amazing. And
Yeah.
I've shared a lot of these three principles and mind body strategies and understandings that because they're all based on truth, they're all based on fact. They're not strategies. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that word, but then they're not tools or anything. But you'll know better than anyone. But um and I'm seeing people recovering.
Mhm.
And before, when I first went into coaching, I thought I didn't feel right coaching people with chronic pain and chronic symptoms because I didn't believe that it was possible to recover. But now that I've achieved such an amazing recovery, I've started coaching others with chronic migraine, chronic knee pain, chronic hip pains, reflux, bowel issues, burning mouth, burning tongue, you name it. And I'm just like, this is what I'm doing now. Naturally, I'd never thought I would be doing this. I knew I could help people run marathons and I knew I could help them, you know, achieve that next level. But I always kind of thought, I'm going to avoid working with people like me, um, because I I just didn't believe I could help those people. I knew I could help them to deal with symptoms and live with the symptoms, like what I'd been doing myself for so many years. Um, but this is like just so exciting now to see what these understandings can do for others.
You know what I love about your story too is that you had a shift in awareness when you were ticking the boxes and realizing, if the thought was helpful or hindering, even before you were introduced to the principles.
Yeah,
And that's so cool. I mean, there's so many times like in our lives that, our innate wisdom is speaking to us and guiding us and all of this stuff. But to actually like, I'm sure it's possible, right? Obviously, because you did it.
yeah.
To have that shift before you're even aware of really the three principles behind it. I find that part so cool and so amazing.
It's bizarre. It happened 4 years before I ever knew anything about the three principles. And when I did learn about the three principles, I was like, that's what happened to me in that moment, then all those
Hmm.
years back. And it was really good because my coaching style was always I never followed frameworks. When I did my initial training, this is one of the frameworks that we were trained on, and I looked at that and my mind went into a spin. I was like, wow, there's too much going on there,
Yeah.
and I was never really very good at following anything. I was always a bit freestyle, and when I discovered the three principles, I was like, wow, this makes sense because this explains what actually happened because I couldn't have explained
Mm-mm.
how did I go from being really unwell and really struggling and then to being able to do those things when nothing changed. Like I was still me, same. Yeah, but that it does explain it
Yeah.
without that, yeah. And all the people, even the people that were doing the training didn't really have that understanding or that expectation either. And I just felt like one of the lucky ones in the group to have a big shift like that
Yeah.
because um, I'm looking around thinking everyone's going to be having this amazing moment, and I'm just there on my own, like celebrating this amazing moment. But when I did find out more and learn more about the three principles, then the moments keep on coming,
Hmm.
and there's this. I've had many moments where I've just no longer got frustrated at something my husband might have done.
Hmm.
Say he's moved my drink that I've prepared for next morning when I'm going running, and he's taken it up to bed for his nighttime drink. And I've come down looking for it, and I'm like, oh, he's got it, and I just laugh. Or he's eaten my prepared sandwiches that I've made and they've disappeared, or things that would have got me angry in the past.
Oh yeah.
I've noticed I'm not getting angry at.
I love it.
And then my favourite moment was in the circus,
Hmm.
in Blackpool Tower Circus, which is quite a famous landmark. And the end of the show, the man said, "I hope you've all enjoyed the show." But he said, "For those of you that didn't, it's your own fault." And he said it as a joke, and I was like, wow. I noticed it. I was like, I create my fun. I'm the one that creates my experience. So I was like, I like that. Yeah. Even
Yeah.
though he was saying it as a joke, like just as a bit of a banter joke, that was another big insight for me when he shared those words about if you don't enjoy the show, it's your own fault. I was like, I literally just after that, every
Mhm.
event I had coming up, every meeting at work that normally I'm like, "Oh, I don't want to do that meeting," I'd be like, Joe, if you don't enjoy the meeting, it's your own fault. And I was just like, little by little, you just kind of have these moments of understanding,
Yeah.
and everything just seemed to get easier.
It really does. And just kind of like that whole circus thing, it's over this past weekend here, I went to a concert with my husband and my youngest daughter. And, all week long it was an outdoor venue. And all week
Yeah.
long, there was rain, a chance of rain in the forecast. But then the day of, right, it
Hmm.
says no rain, right? And we're like, oh, awesome. We get there and we get to our seats and it's sprinkling a little bit, right?
Yeah.
No big deal. But and we're listening to the concert and then the rain just keeps getting a little bit heavier and a little bit heavier. And once upon a time, like I probably the second it would have started sprinkling, I would have
Hmm.
gotten so frustrated and so upset and so mad that I would have ruined the experience altogether. And this past weekend when it did, I found myself literally at one point I was
Ah.
I like that rain just hitting my face and just taking it all in and listening to the music and enjoying it. And it was so fun. We did wind up leaving a little early because it really started to downpour. But
Yeah.
even my daughter, when we got to the car and stuff, said, she had an amazing time.
Oh.
And so, yeah, the principles in your experience and the thoughts that we feed and all of that stuff. Yeah, like I said, once upon a time, I would have been so mad at that rain.
Yeah.
How dare you, rain? How dare you rain on this concert right now when I'm trying to enjoy myself? We wound up having a fabulous time, and I just had this moment of just, it's like, nothing else around me existed outside of me, and just taking in the music and feeling the cool raindrops. It was beautiful. And so, yeah, that's, kind of like the circus thing, if you
Yeah.
didn't enjoy the show, it's just it's your own fault. So,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
You're creating the experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I like that. And did you say Sunday you went to the concert with the rain?
It was Saturday night here.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
we've been having a lot of rain in England as well.
Yeah.
We must be experiencing similar weathers, and then today has been really, really warm, the complete extreme.
Yeah.
Same for you. Yeah, we must be
Really
getting some.
warm here today. Yeah.
We had the similar situation on Sunday where we went for a family walk.
Hmm.
Not a massive hill, just like a nice moors over
Hmm.
the moor. And it wasn't forecast rain, but we got there, it was like quite heavy coming down.
Right.
And my husband was having his moment where he wasn't enjoying the show and it was his
Hmm.
own fault. And I'm saying, and he's like, we should just turn back. And I'm saying to him, no, it's, I'm saying to him, there's no such thing as bad weather.
Right.
And, and I'm saying it's just that we're not wearing our waterproofs. Next time, I'm like, we'll just make sure that it's what we're wearing, if we're wearing the right gear. And I was like, but to be fair, it's gonna stop and the sun will come out. I said that if we turn back, we're just gonna miss out. So I'm like encouraging him because unfortunately, he's not quite there with this understanding as where I'm at.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter because our relationship is the best it's been in years and years and years on the back of me having this massive shift.
Yes.
And especially in the last 6 months with my symptoms finally becoming to disappear. So things are really improving in for everything in life. So we ended up keeping going. We had our daughter as well, and it stopped, and the sun came out, and then we saw an event on, and it was lots of trail runners coming, and we got to see them all running past and cheering them on, and it ended up being the best ever. And I said to him, "Oh, I'm glad we didn't turn around." And I was thinking, you just kind of know, and it just works out, doesn't it? Sometimes you don't need to fix it, you don't need to fight it, fix it, do anything.
Yeah.
It's just gonna work out, and it did. So that, yeah, we've both had rain experiences this week.
We did. Yeah.
They've been
And
good.
and I love that, yours did turn sunny and it did work out and it's always going to work out. And, our rain picked up and it got heavier. We did leave the show a little early, but we had a wonderful time. And
Yeah,
that's part of just not getting fed up into some type of thinking over the weather and just being in the moment and enjoying life.
yeah, just you notice things that you don't notice without. Well, like I said, the sun came out and it dried out for a little while, and then it did start raining again. So we got drenched, and we
Yeah,
by the time we got back to the car, we were completely wet through, right through to our yeah.
that was
But
us
we were
too.
it was fun. We had a really good time, like you did.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And my daughter did too. And that's what I loved is that she's like, you know what? Because my husband was like, oh, I'm sorry, honey, that we're leaving a little early. I'm sorry. She's like, Dad, I had a great time. Like, so yeah, it's all
Yeah,
about our perspective and the thinking that we have in the moment of what's going on in our lives that really truly creates our experience and whether we enjoy it or we get upset at it. And yeah,
yeah. Randomly, another example just came to me, which my friend shared with me whilst we were running tonight, and she's done my full 6 month program, which is weekly. It's a weekly group coaching, and the I've done it 3 times now. It's called Marathon Minds.
yeah,
I don't know if the name's going to change next time round because originally I think people thought they had to run a marathon, but it was never about it was never about running a marathon. If someone wanted to run a marathon, that's fine,
right.
but it was more about having that confidence, in life of feeling like you can do whatever you like. And so she was sharing an experience that her and her husband went on this walk up this mountain in this winter. The weather were quite bad, it were freezing, it were a bit icy and snowy, and she was having the best time ever. And she was like, oh, I'm just going to take some pictures. And her husband's like, we need to go, we need to get back. People die in these situations. And he was really, his thought process was so different to hers. And she was just like enjoying it, not scared at all. She, she was just like having the best time ever. But he was completely the opposite. And because we were talking about climbing another mountain together over summer, and we were deciding on who we thought we should invite and who we might not want to invite.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, we need to be selective because some people just don't, they're not quite there with their understanding, are they, about how experience is created, not
Right.
from the weather, nothing to do with what shoes you're wearing on your feet, nothing to do with the outside world. But for me, when I had that inside out understanding of all experiences created on the inside, I didn't care anymore about whatever shoes. That I was just like, I'm good to go. It actually made these adventures that are some of them are very tough adventures where you are really in the middle of, if you get lost, you've nowhere where you are. You just, and it just really helped me to trust and know that I'm gonna be fine.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so her husband, a lot like my husband, I think we'll send them together.
Right.
We'll go together. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, they come with us, and like they say, if we're in a good place,
Hmm.
then they'll join, they'll come with us, and it's helped to settle them too.
Yeah.
So I think in the past I would have never it would have never kept going. It would have been like, right, we're turning back, that's it, not doing it. But he actually is doing more and more,
Ah, see, yeah.
joining me, including
Absolutely.
just pruning the tree, which involved a massive amount of branches. I thought he was just going to do a little trim, and I walked outside and there's like an entire tree on my front garden. I'm like, do you need help? So
Right.
that's where I was before we came on this meeting,
Mhm. Oh
running
my
down the
goodness.
street, making sure don't do that with someone passing by.
Yeah.
That's another story too. I'll quickly share this
Go
because
ahead.
I think having this understanding has just been so super powerful for me getting through life being lifey, I call it.
Yes.
I was in a group coaching program and somebody said life's going to get lifey, but you don't need to hurt. And I was like, oh, I love that expression. So this was um, around 18 months ago. A complete freak accident happened to me whilst I was in my mum's back garden. She has her own embroidery and print business.
Yes.
Well, it was my mum and dad had the business together, but my dad sadly passed away 3 years ago. And again, this understanding and that shift that I had leading up to that happening, I was amazed at how I handled myself, how I was there, and everything that I did along with doing my first 50-mile ultra and 100 miles just after that happened. And they had their own embroidery and print business, and they had a massive workshop in their back garden. But behind the neighbouring house behind has got some humongous trees, and my parents have lived there for 30 years. These trees have been growing and growing and growing, and
Mhm.
they would never have them groomed or trimmed or whatever you call it with the tree. And the owner doesn't live in England anymore, and he's
Mhm.
in his 90s, so he doesn't have a recent. He's not been to the house in a lot of years. It's an estate agent that manages it, so they kept refusing. And since my dad got unwell, he could no longer trim the branches, and they
Mhm.
were really big and really tall. And my mum had desperately tried to say, "Look, can we cut these? Can we sort out something?" And they kept saying no. He kept saying they're sacred and they're a habitat for the animals, and my mum's ashes are there, and I'm not messing with them. And he wouldn't do anything. So my mum, after my dad died, she was getting more and more worried about the trees, and she was saying, "I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know how I'm ever going to resolve it." The fence had fallen over because the roots were lifting,
Mhm.
and they'd said, "Can we do a new fence?" And my mum said, "I'm not paying half until we've got the trees trimmed, because I'm not going to pay money for a new fence that's potentially going to get ruined by the tree."
Yeah.
And so, long story short, my mum had gone up to the garden a couple of days before this incident happening, And she sent me a photo of the brand new fence that had been fitted, and I was like, oh wow, there's a new fence. A couple of days after, I went up there because we've got lots of equipment to sort and things to do with the business, and we were up there spending time there on a weekend, working out what we've got, what we need to get back in action. Long story short, my daughter ran up there, went straight in. My mum was waiting in the doorway, and I was walking up, and I was just quickly. Luckily I had a coat on. It was October, so it was a bit cold. I had my hood
Hmm.
up, and I was just checking my emails, and I just briefly stood outside the door as my mum was waiting for me to come through. I looked down at my phone, and crack, the most humongous branch landed on the top of my, like literally came down out of nowhere. I had no chance to move. There was no time. It
Oh
just
my God.
fell straight down and it clonked me on my head
Ah,
here. And it was such a shock because luckily it didn't knock me out. Not
right.
like and and the new fence, the brand new fence, caught the brunt of I think it took the most impact.
Yeah.
So it kind of crushed it a little bit, but it took the brunt of the thickest part of the branch, and then it kind of Kong, just a little, the thinner part hit me on the top of the head, and I was stuck in the branches and the leaves, and I was like all wriggling around thinking, ah, and my mum was screaming, and then I managed to get inside, and I was like, get in, and we had a bit of a drama, a bit of a scare moment. But long story short, I think me having this understanding allowed me to get over that really quickly.
Yes.
And next, and even that same day, I continued with my normal day. We were planning to go out for our, of all things, we were going to Specsavers for our eye appointment. And I thought, oh, that's good timing because I've just had a head injury.
Yeah.
So I thought, oh, I'll go get my eyes looked at and they'll be able. It was just so bizarre. But once we'd had the initial panic over and we realised we'll climb out, we climbed under the tree branch. I'll send you a picture. You'll be surprised when you see it.
Yeah.
Anyway, the next day I was like, right, I'm going to carry on. I'm going to keep going. I did my 20-mile run next morning. I'm not going to lie. I did feel jumpy for
Yeah.
a few days, like shadows kind of gave me a little jump, but I
Mhm.
knew I'd be fine. And I got back really quickly following that. Um, so I think it just, when things happen, I just feel like they're easier to handle.
Absolutely.
And yeah,
Yeah. So,
there was another one last week. I had a police chase and the car that was being chased smashed into my wing mirror. Luckily, it was just a jump scare. It knocked my wing mirror off and then he ran off. That was another one. But again, I could kind of go through it and be like, oh yeah, this is fine. We're
mhm.
good. And I even listened back on camera with the dash cam footage and I could hear the conversation that me and my mum were having and what happened. And I was like, oh wow, I would not have handled it in that way if we were going back prior to 2018, if not
Mhm.
even going back before I got the three principles understanding. That's made things even better. But yeah, sorry, I cut you off there. You were going to share something.
No, no, it's just absolutely how, and I think that I've shared this before on a podcast, I'm pretty sure, but so I'm going to make it real brief. But, just like you're saying, the way that we react to stuff and the things that go on and how much easier and sometimes it even catches us a little bit. And we're like, hang on, is this me really not reacting the way I normally would react to something? And I had a very horrific experience on a beach that I go to all the time, um, on vacation. Um, no, I don't live on the beach. It'd be nice if I did, but
Yeah.
on vacation, and yeah, where I started just unexpectedly, I felt fine. I felt perfectly fine. I wasn't sick. Nothing was going on with me. And I just start coughing up blood and like massive amounts. I mean, it just, and I was at this beach, it's a private beach, and I was there with my sister and my cousin, and they had gone for a walk because they like to walk the beach. I like to sit there and play in the waves. So, yeah, this starts and I get up and I'm coughing and I don't know what's going on because it's never happened in my life. And I'm like cleaning myself up with the ocean water. And when it subsided after about like 5 to 10 minutes. It took a minute. And I went back and I sat in my chair, not crying, not freaking out,
Yeah.
just sat in my chair and seriously just thought to myself, I'm just gonna wait for them to come back, me, my sister, and my cousin from their walk, however long that should take. And it's just, yeah, our reaction to things in the moment now. And I think it's, it's the clearer mind and understanding your human experience. I would have never reacted like that in the past. I would have, oh my gosh, I would have
Wow. You might have had a freak out.
like,
That's amazing how calm, like you say,
mhm, I would have freaked
amazing
out.
how calm.
Yeah. And it's not to say that, we don't get a little bit because, we still we still do here and there because afterwards, I was in the hospital. I was in the ICU for a few days and then I was in the hospital and finally they released me and my husband had drove down because I missed my flight back home because I was in the hospital. Um
Oh.
yeah, but um when I got home, I did have my moments here and there where I would my might start get into my thinking a little bit.
Yeah.
And, if I coughed or something, I'd be like, oh gosh. And but
Yeah.
it's the awareness now that I have behind it where when I started doing that, I would be like, not really controlling my thoughts, but just knowing in that moment that I started doing it that, hey, you're doing this to yourself right now.
The way that you respond in it changes, don't it? How we respond to, because we're human, we're going to get those initial
Yeah,
moments. I still get them now,
yeah.
and I forgot to add this bit, but it's looking likely that I'm going to be diagnosed with ADHD.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for the final assessment, but it's looking very likely, and there's a massive family history in my family with autism and ADHD.
Hmm.
And again, um, for a long time, I thought maybe that was why I was struggling to get to a good place. And again, I now know that differently. And like you said, if we choose, like you don't, I never realized it because I never responded the way that I respond. Like you just described the most calmest, amazing response to
It was
having
crazy, but
the
yeah.
drop. Like it's a scary moment that,
Hmm.
and it's powerful
Hmm.
the outcome that we can have in it and how we get a better outcome in general, even when we're faced with a massive challenge or yeah, the
Yeah,
un because we can't control the uncontrollables.
right.
Yeah, that's how I look at it. I think stop trying to control the uncontrollable. It's so much easier when you kind of just know. You feel a bit smug sometimes when you have this understanding because you
You
feel a
know?
bit like, does that make any sense to you when I say that?
Hmm. Absolutely.
Because
Yeah.
I do my best to help others and to share, and I'm just doing my best. And sometimes I'm just like, they're not having it, they're not open to it. So I'm just gonna have to sit here and be really smug and just enjoy my moment and don't be guilty for that because I'm a bit of a nightmare for the self-criticism and the guilt and the this and the that. And that's another thing that's I've been really it's helped me with a lot is being able to actually acknowledge my achievements and just say, Joe, well done. Be proud of that because wow, because I never did that before. I was
Yeah.
never did that.
That's
It was
awesome.
never good enough.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the things that this experience has done for me is that hard, like harsh talking we have to ourselves, our inner dialogue, our ego and whatnot. One of the first things with my shift that I noticed was different was the constant, like I was the person that would walk by a mirror and just completely pick myself apart for no reason, every time, anytime, you know, even if there was nothing to pick apart, I'd find something, right? And that was one of the first things that made me, because when I had my shift, like I didn't, even though it was this beautiful moment, of peace and joy and, tears coming down my face and just feeling alive for the first time, really alive. You don't really realize it, at least I didn't, what had actually taken place for me,
Yeah, you
having
know
different,
you
yeah,
don't know what come to you.
yeah,
I don't know about your moment.
yeah. So mine, I'll make it really quick, because I know you and I are both trying to get to a meeting, but yeah, no, mine what came, and it was before I was even studying innate well-being. It was, but still under David. I was still studying under David in the Ultimate Coach program. See, nice fancy title, Ultimate Coach, right? So
Yeah,
I was like, yeah, yeah. So I was taking that class and I I don't even know what was said. And this is after David and I had had a conversation, or he had spoke to a limiting belief I was having in the past, with the past not existing, but I won't go into all that. Um, I was I was watching one of my instructional videos, and I don't even know what it was about, but I all of a sudden just got full of this feeling, like I was like, oh my gosh, like I feel absolutely amazing. Like, what in the heck is going on? I stood up, filled with this joy and this peace that I have never ever experienced in my life, never. And tears of joy just coming down my face. I went to my back door. My viewers are probably getting tired of hearing me tell this, but it's okay. I went to my back door and I opened it, and I swear, Joe, it was like I was looking around in the trees, the grass, houses, the streets, cars, if I could see them, whatever I could see. It was like I was seeing it all for the very first time. It's like every filter and programming and had fallen away, right? The lens that I was looking at life through before was gone. And it was like I was actually truly seeing for the first time ever. And it was absolutely amazing. And I'll never, ever, ever forget it, because it was such a great feeling. But quickly, to wrap back into my other story, I didn't even realize what had happened. I just thought, wow, that
yeah,
was amazing. I feel amazing. Everything's amazing, right? Until I'm like walking like past mirrors and, in my bathroom. I had a huge mirror in my bathroom, and I would walk past it multiple times a day. And it was like 3 days later from that shift that I was walking past the mirror, and I stopped in the doorway of my bathroom and I was like, wait a minute. I didn't stop. I didn't stop to, pick myself apart in the mirror. I
wow,
intentionally went back into my bathroom and I
yeah,
stood in front of the mirror, and it was literally like, okay, give it to me. What, like, what do you got to say?
yeah,
And it was nothing. It was quiet. And the only thing, that was a feeling that came from, it wasn't like looking at my reflection in the mirror anymore. It was like actually seeing my true self, my soul, whatever you want to say.
yeah,
And it was like the only thought in my head was, this is just beautiful. This is true essence of pure beauty and love. And it was like love looking at me. That was the reflection. It was so amazing. And to this day, like, I'm not saying that my ego doesn't say stuff sometimes, but not about that. Not in the mirror, not with the picking myself apart anymore. And I still
yeah.
test it all the time, just for fun. I'm like, do we have something to say today?
Yeah. Oh,
No.
yeah. You got but nothing. That's so good. That's
Yeah, I love
amazing.
that
That.
part. Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. That you, like you say, you just stopped being so critical of yourself.
Yeah.
It just disappeared,
It
and you didn't
really
even
did. And
know
it was
you
really
didn't know it
cool.
happened until you literally didn't walk past the mirror, and it didn't happen. You're like,
Yeah.
incredible. I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
That's really good. Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to cut our time short, but I know I can always have you back on, because you just, yeah, we haven't really talked a lot about how amazing the work is that you do with people. So hopefully I can have you back on. I mean, if there's anything else you want to add to the conversation, please do.
No, massive thanks for having me on. I'm definitely love to come back at some point in the future and continue to share
Uh,
more because I can talk for well, the most I've ever spoken for is over 26 hours solid.
wow,
No,
really?
yeah, that was one of the ultra marathons that I did. So
Mm,
yeah, no problem getting me back. I'm always
awesome.
happy to go. But yeah, I'm just thinking if there was any other couple of things to share before we finish for today. But I know we both need to join another meeting now, don't we?
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
that's okay. How about this much though? If anybody would like to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do so?
So I've got Facebook, Joanne Lee Smith, LEE. I've got my website, www.joanneleesmith.com. Instagram, and again, it's all Joanne Lee Smith.
Yep.
And I think I've got a TikTok and a YouTube, but I'm not using them very often. So the website has got my email address, and I'm having a new website made up, which is going to be the seraphic approach. So I'll share them at a later date because it's not quite finished. But
Nice.
that's going to be the mind body coaching for
Yeah.
those with chronic pain and chronic symptoms.
Yeah.
But it'll be a blended three principles mind body approach, which
Love it.
is the the two main areas that's helped me to get to my recovery. So I'll share them with you at another time.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I would love to have you back because, yeah, I feel like there's so much more that we can expand on, especially because you do work with chronic pain. And, those are people who believe that, who've seen, probably doctor after doctor and specialist after specialist and believe that there is no hope and that they're just stuck with this. So definitely, I'd
Definitely,
love to have you back on.
I was one of those people, and it's not true. So yeah, we could talk again another time about more details about that for sure.
Absolutely.
Um, yeah, I'd love to do that. There's But yeah, we'll leave it at that for now then.
We sure will. Joanne, thank you so much. And yeah, I'm definitely going to have you back because this is a topic to further explore for sure for everybody.
One more thing I've just thought. I told you I could go all day.
Go ahead. I
I
do the
do,
same thing.
I do, I do have a private Facebook group,
Okay.
and it's called the Bend and Snap Trail Therapy Tribe. And
Nice.
I do weekly live there. I do 30-minute live every week, and I
Okay.
do talk about it's like I call it an off trail training session, but it's just a fun session, and I do talk a lot about the three principles and mind body approach, and it's all linked with getting active, running. There's all kinds of things in there, so
I love that.
I can share that too.
Yes. Yeah. I will put all the details in the comments too. So people can find it in the comments, but I'm going to join your group.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, I'd love to have you in there. I'll
So,
send you the link.
yes,
Thank you.
absolutely. But once again, no, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking your time. And yeah, I know we've almost talked an hour and
Yeah,
ah,
longest podcast ever.
not for me, maybe for you, but but no,
Oh,
thank you. And yes, I will have you back. It's been a pleasure. Thank you everybody for watching. Anything else you want to add? Go ahead.
thank you everyone. Thanks for listening, and please do get in touch. I'm very approachable. Message me, direct message. I'm happy to chat with anyone,
Love
anyone
it.
that will help me. Thank
Yeah.
you.
No, you're welcome. Thank you. And thank you everybody for watching. We'll see you next time.